prepared to defend the WBA featherweight title against the opponent Steve Cruz. Cruz, like Danilo Cabrera, who had bothered Mcguigan considerably in his previous title defense, a relatively tall featherweight at 5 feet 7 inches tall. The opponent who had been originally booked for the fight and for the previous fight, Fernando Sosa, was a shorter, more compact fighter. There, the champion at the time, Barry Mcguigan. You can see his record as he came into the bout. About 1,000 of Mcguigan's Irish supporters had flown over to Las Vegas to be in support at ringside for him. The referee, Richard Steele, not a scorer in the Nevada system. There, Mcguigan's father, Patty, along with his wife and young son, as they sat at ringside in anticipation of their fighter's title defense. The temperature at this point, Alex Wallow, hovered above 100 degrees.
It was above 100 degrees outside the ring, but with the television lights there, of course, it was well above that.
Mcguigan in the red trunks, Steve Cruz in the light green trunks as round one began. Cruz, basically a counter puncher. Most of the 13 knockouts in his previous record had taken place early in his career. Mcguigan, an action fighter.
This is typical Barry Mcguigan here at the beginning, Jim. Moving in, pressuring Cruz, keeping him on his back foot. Steve moving effectively, staying out of trouble. And shooting that left jab of his own.
Is there any justification for the argument that Mcguigan did not have sufficient time to prepare mentally and physically for the kind of opponent that Steve Cruz was?
I certainly didn't think so coming into the fight. Steve Cruz's record was not an overwhelming one. He had not faced world-class opposition. He had fought a club fighter named Lenny Valdez and got stopped in the first round. And I just didn't think that his ability warranted Mcguigan needing extra time to prepare.
Here's Steve Cruz and Barry Mcguigan midway through round one. Most of the punching to this point having been done by the incoming champion.
There you see that left hook by the champion, Mcguigan, below the belt of Steve Cruz, and Richard Steele, the referee, giving him a warning. That would become a major story, the crucial story in this fight as the rounds wore down. You see the trunks there of Steve Cruz. After the fight, Mcguigan's handlers said that Cruz's trunks were above his navel. Theoretically, the trunks should be at the line of the navel, an imaginary line, and Cruz's trunks are above that line.
Of course, we've seen many other fighters who have worn the trunks even higher than Steve Cruz wore them there, notably Larry Holmes throughout his career.
And you'll notice that you can't see Mcguigan's navel either here, so something that both fighters will take advantage of. I wouldn't be surprised if Cruz had the trunks a little bit high because Mcguigan is known as such a devastating body puncher.
Good exchange along the ropes there with both fighters landing punches. Round one wearing down, and already you could see Mcguigan sweating profusely, as did Steve Cruz in the afternoon heat in Las Vegas.
Watch your head, watch your head.
Now at the end of each round, as we look back at the fight, we will look at the scoring by the three judges: Angel Tovar of Venezuela, Medardo Villalobos of Panama, and Guy Jutras of Canada. In this case, Villalobos giving round one to Cruz, Tovar and Jutras both awarding it to Mcguigan. The 10-point must system in effect in Las Vegas, and the referee does not score the fight. Joined us late. Mike Tyson knocked Marvis Frazier out in 30 seconds of round one. We are looking back at taped coverage of the Barry Mcguigan-Steve Cruz Featherweight Championship fight in Las Vegas on June 23. Round two was scored for Steve Cruz by all three judges. The fight very close as they went into round three.
All right.
Here began round three of what was only the second boxing appearance in the United States by Ireland's Clonus Cyclone Barry Mcguigan. He had fought against a fighter named Levon Mcgowan in July of 1983 in Chicago and knocked him out in one round. So this title defense against Steve Cruz in June in Las Vegas was only the second appearance before an American audience by Mcguigan. punch by Cruz landed on the chin of Mcguigan there. This was early in round 3. You have to assume that Cruz, by this point, had gained great confidence, particularly as a result of having won round 2 on all 3 judges' cards.
Stevie continues to fight when he wants to fight, setting himself, moving back, setting himself, moving back. And to this point in round 3, it was effective.
Good body punches by Mcguigan, and again, Cruz stepped forward and delivered a counter punch in return.
Mcguigan punches well with both hands, has good power in both hands, and punches well to the head and to the body. I was very surprised that his body punching did not take more out of Steve Cruz in the course of the fight. Good left hook there by Mcguigan. And Cruz retaliated with a good right-left of his own.
Another right hand by Cruz. But now Mcguigan had begun to pick up the pace. With a good right hand after the left jab had found the range.
Barry continually trying to work in behind that jab, using it to set up the right hand that we saw earlier in the round.
Short right landed there by Mcguigan, but it didn't have a lot of force behind it.
You heard the voice there of referee Richard Steele. In his opinion, the Mcguigan right was below the belt of Cruz.
And that was the second such warning issued by Steele to Mcguigan to this point in the fight. Another good left hand by Mcguigan. And a right. So at this point, Barry Mcguigan, the title holder, had for the first time begun to assert physical dominance over Steve Cruz, putting punches together. And consequently, all 3 judges awarded the round to Mcguigan. So to that point in the fight, he led on 2 cards and trailed by 1 point on the Panamanian judges. On the evening of June 23, 1986 in Las Vegas, Barry Mcguigan defending his WBA featherweight championship against surprise challenger Steve Cruz, a late substitute for the originally scheduled opponent Fernando Sosa. The bout took place in sunlight at Caesar's Palace. Temperature outside the ring above 100 degrees, somewhat hotter under the television lights in the ring. Good counterpunch right hand by Steve Cruz. At this point, Alex Wallow, it appeared that Cruz had begun to stand his ground a little more resolutely, not backing up quite as much as he had in the first 3 rounds.
Coming into this fight, most people gave Mcguigan a clear edge in terms of power. So it was assumed that Cruz would have to move to stay away from Mcguigan's power, but he also cannot let Mcguigan just walk in all the time. He has to get his respect.
Mcguigan stepped up the tempo, moved in aggressively just as he had toward the end of round 3. Mcguigan here pinned Cruz against the rope.
Again, Richard Steele, keep him up to Barry Mcguigan for the left below the belt.
And another right hand that appeared to be low. And another left there that appeared to be below the belt.
This is where Mcguigan wants to keep Cruz. When he's on the ropes and in the corners, Stevie Cruz cannot use that effective movement. Another left below the belt of Cruz. And a Cruz left below Mcguigan's belt. It's a battle of strength there. Cruz pushed his way off the ropes, and Mcguigan just pushed him right back onto them. And Mcguigan using his shoulder, trying to control Cruz's movement. Again, there with the right shoulder. Left below the belt. Didn't do much damage.
Another left below the belt. And still another.
Watch your head!
Referee Richard Steele warning both fighters, watch your heads. At this point in the fight, it appeared that Barry Mcguigan was just taking over on the basis of physical strength. He's keeping Steve Cruz pinned where he wants him, and where Steve Cruz cannot move out of danger.
So this, like round 3, was a round which clearly had been won by Mcguigan, as he had taken Cruz to the ropes and delivered the damage.
Mcguigan there threw a left hook after the bell. Cruz retaliated. Richard Steele brought the two fighters together.
When the bell rings, you break.
And there you hear Steele, as he had told them, when the bell rings, you break. So there was the scoring for round 4, as again all 3 judges awarded that round to Mcguigan. At this point, Mcguigan led on 2 judges' cards and was all even on the card of the Panamanian judge Villalobos. Lampley live in Glens Falls, New York, in the wake of Mike Tyson's 32nd knockout of Marvis Frazier. We're showing you tape coverage of Barry Mcguigan versus Steve Cruz. Mcguigan won round 5 on one card. It was even on 2 others. As the 2 fighters entered round 6, Barry Mcguigan led on all 3 scorecards. As round 6 of this WBA featherweight championship bout began, Barry Mcguigan, the champion, led Steve Cruz, the challenger, on all 3 judges' scorecards. Cruz, the 22-year-old plumber's helper from Fort Worth, Texas, and Mcguigan, 25-year-old champion from Clones in County Monaghan, Ireland. In this, as in the previous round, most of the early action took place near the center of the ring.
Good Cruz jab. You see Steve Cruz pushing Mcguigan back with the jab.
Cruz had clearly gained confidence here, moving forward frequently after having spent most of the first 3 rounds backing up. Good left hand by Mcguigan. But by this point, Cruz had taken solid punches from Mcguigan and remained unfazed.
Good left hook there. And Mcguigan at this point was hurt. His legs went funny. He grabbed. That was not particularly a sensational punch by Steve Cruz, but it had a lot of effect on Barry Mcguigan, who was considered to have a very good chin coming into this fight. You see the Cruz corner waving their man in.
There behind the corner post, you could see the cornermen for Cruz waving to him, go on in, you've got him hurt.
Another good right hand by Cruz. What surprised me there at that point, Steve Cruz released. He stayed in range, but he did not let as many punches go as you would think he would, having the champion hurt.
Mcguigan continued to wobble to the end of round 6, a round which had clearly belonged to Steve Cruz. So the 22-year-old challenger had won round 6 on all 3 cards, had hurt Mcguigan apparently twice in the round, and had now narrowed the scoring so that he trailed on 2 cards and was even on 1. Aptly again, live as we continue to show you tape coverage of the sensational and ultimately somewhat controversial Barry Mcguigan-Steve Cruz featherweight championship fight. Mcguigan won the 7th round on all 3 scorecards. Cruz won the 8th round on all 3 scorecards. As they went into the 9th, Mcguigan led by 1 point on 2 scorecards. The 3rd card was dead even. The 9th round begins. At the beginning of round 9 in the 100-degree plus heat of Las Vegas, June 23, WBA featherweight champion Barry Mcguigan held a slim lead over challenger Steve Cruz in what had been to this point a tough, fast-paced, grueling fight. Mcguigan ahead by 1 point on the cards of 2 judges, even on a 3rd. Had won the preceding round, but it had been a fight in which Cruz's confidence seemed to have grown through the first 8 rounds. Having backed up early in the fight, he now stood his ground resolutely and occasionally moved forward to trade punches with Barry Mcguigan.
Right hand by the champion. It looked to me at this point that Mcguigan's stamina was beginning to take over. He had lost rounds 6 and 7. He had won round 8 and coming out here round 9, and I thought it was just a matter of Mcguigan's strength and stamina taking over, and only a matter of time before Mcguigan either stopped Cruz or outpointed him.
Low blow there by Steve Cruz, and now Richard Steele, the referee, stepped in to warn Cruz against low blow.
Next time.
Previously, Mcguigan had been warned for the same offense.
And now both fighters have been told the same thing. That's the last warning. Next time I take a point away.
Punch it out, punch it out.
Mcguigan had won the preceding round, delivering punches in the middle of the ring. Here again, he was scoring effectively. But earlier in the fight, he had appeared to assert dominance over Cruz when he would push him against the rope and bully him, as he did here.
Good right-handed counter by Cruz coming off the ropes. But Mcguigan, the busier of the 2 fighters.
And as he retreated to his corner, Mcguigan still faced the concern of a cut over his left eye. Listen here now, as he asked the men in his corner to say a prayer for him. Pray for me that I do it right.
You know what I'm doing, okay. Let me have a look, ready. A very good round. A great round. A marvelous round. You're boxing. You're going to take him out this round and the next round. Box. I won't get out of here. What's doing it right? 1, 2. Say a prayer, please. Say a prayer. 1, 2, 3. You're okay. No problem. Clap your left hand. No problem, Barry. 1, 2, and clap your left hand. Pick your shots and you're going to take them out of there. Oh, you're right in this ring. But box. So. Box. 1, 2, left hook.
To listen to that exchange, you might not have known that the champion, Mcguigan, had just won the preceding round and now led on all 3 cards. But an extraordinary moment, Alex Wallow. Say a prayer for me. Please, God. Clearly, he recognized that he was in some trouble at this point in the fight.
He had, in fact, won the previous 2 rounds, but he must have expended or felt that he expended tremendous energy in doing so, and he also felt that Cruz was still hanging in.
So it was with some trepidation that Mcguigan began round 10.
I think one other problem that Barry Mcguigan had in this fight was the work in his corner, or the lack of work in his corner. At no point in the 14 breaks between the rounds did he get ice on his neck. Occasionally a sponge, but really no concerted effort to revitalize the fighter.
Keep him up, Barry. Keep him up.
Keep him up, Barry, from the referee, Richard Steele. Steve Cruz, who ran out of energy a little bit in rounds 8 and 9, seemed to be a little bit snappier here in round 10. There, putting his punches together. And the champion, Mcguigan, not punching as often. There, good work by the champion. Catching Cruz on the ropes, scoring to the head and the body.
Remember that Mcguigan's cornerman had suggested to him that he could take Cruz out in this round. Good counter punch by Cruz, and Mcguigan went down.
A left hook from Cruz that did not look to be a very special punch, but it was enough to put Barry Mcguigan down. He was not hurt, as you can see, but he had been winning this round up until the point of getting knocked down.
He nodded at his corner as he counted with the referee and stepped back into the middle of the ring with Cruz. Whatever remaining element of certainty Cruz may have needed to grasp regarding his capacity to win the fight was probably now in place.
But again, you see Steve Cruz, having hurt the champion, was very careful about following up. A couple of jabs there, but not really pouncing on his man, trying to finish him.
Solid right hand by Cruz as the bell sounded to end round 10. The turning point in the fight. Mcguigan, worried after having won rounds 8 and 9, went down here, Alex, in round 10.
It was an inside left hook by Steve Cruz as they were trading there. Watch it again here. Watch for the Cruz hook right there. And as you can see, it was not a particularly solid punch, almost an arm punch.
So after that round, given to Cruz by a 2-point margin by Tovar and Villalobos, it was Steve Cruz who led on the Villalobos card, trailed on Jutras' card, and was even on the Tovar card. Again, Jim Lampley live in Glens Falls, New York. If you weren't with us earlier, you missed Mike Tyson's 32nd destruction of Marvis Frazier. We're showing you taped coverage of the featherweight championship fight, which took place a month ago between Barry Mcguigan and Steve Cruz. The 11th round was a slow round, won by Cruz on one card, even on the other two, and the fight could hardly have been closer as they went into the 12th. Number 9 WBA featherweight challenger Steve Cruz got a chance to fight title holder Barry Mcguigan only because original opponent Fernando Sosa was found to have detached retinas in both eyes. Now he entered the 12th round on June 23 with a chance to win the fight. Neither fighter had expended a great deal of energy in round 11 after Cruz had knocked Mcguigan down in round 10. This round, the 12th, began rather slowly.
Better work here by the champion, Barry Mcguigan.
This was the stage at which you might have expected the champion to mount one of his patented rallies. He was battling, in addition to Cruz, The heat in Las Vegas, where temperatures rose to more than 100 degrees.
At this point, midway in round 12, it looked to me when I saw this fight live that Steve Cruz was showing signs of wearing down again. There he put himself on the ropes. It was not so much Barry Mcguigan's strength or superior stamina at this point as it was I just thought Steve Cruz was giving out. The shadows finally starting to cover a portion of the ring, giving the fighters some relief from the scorching sun.
Good right hand there by Cruz, as there was still some effective counterpunching being shown by the challenger.
And Mcguigan still showing the movement backwards and laterally that he began to show in round 11.
Right hand lead by Mcguigan, followed by a good left.
You see when he comes in, a left
Low blow. And this is where Richard Steele stepped in and warned Mcguigan once again for the low blow, and in fact told the three judges to deduct a point from Mcguigan's score. A key juncture in the bout.
The blow was clearly low, as had been a number of Mcguigan punches up to this point in round 12. There was some booing, but I thought the deduction was appropriate and perhaps even overdue.
Mcguigan had been warned by Steele several times previous to that for low blows. So as he went back to his corner, he no doubt reflected on the point he had lost as a result of that left hook below the belt. The three judges disagreed, one of them calling it even, one of them giving the round to Cruz, one of them giving the round to Mcguigan. But after the deduction of the point on all three cards, Cruz held a 3-point lead on one card, led on another, and was even on the third. Right now, here comes the dramatic conclusion of that fight between Mcguigan and Cruz. Again, we remind you it took place on June 23. In the 13th round, Mcguigan began to rally. He won that round on all three cards. So going into the 14th round, he led on one card, trailed on another, was even on a third. Now, the last two rounds.
Let's go.
Round 14 began in Las Vegas. Both the reigning WBA featherweight champion Barry Mcguigan and the challenger Steve Cruz, somewhat depleted by heat and by their mutual efforts, both with plenty of incentive to reach down for a maximum effort in the last two rounds. Mcguigan had won the 13th round.
You can hear the Irish fans in the background with the chant of "Here we go," trying to inspire their champion. Richard Steele again telling Mcguigan to keep his punches up.
Mcguigan had won the title in London. His two defenses had taken place in Belfast and Dublin. This was only his second boxing appearance in the United States. A tremendous opportunity for the young man from Fort Worth, Steve Cruz, who was working part-time as a plumber's helper.
Two more right hands below Cruz's belt and a third.
Mcguigan, perhaps at this point, a little too tired to concentrate on keeping his punches up. Bullying Cruz into the ropes. Of Mcguigan's attack could not mask the exhaustion which was so apparent on his face at this point. Again the chant.
Mcguigan digging down, being the busier fighter, scoring more telling blows on Cruz.
Much as in the 13th round, Mcguigan, knowing that his title may be on the line, reached for the extra effort. Good right hand. So the 14th was another solid round for Barry Mcguigan as he climbed into a better position on the scorecard. Winning on all three judges' cards, Mcguigan found himself going into the 15th round, leading on Tovar's card, trailing on Villalobos' card, leading by 2 points on the Canadian judge Jutras' card.
This is your last and final round.
No blows, man.
That's beautiful. Finish the thing. Give us some money.
Steve, you know what a last round in a fight is, don't you? This is it. Now I want a good eye out there. I want quick hands.
Is this one for the world title?
Huh?
Is this one for the world title?
Yes, sir. This is it. Let's go get it.
That's the it, baby.
This round may be the one we need. You hear me? It's close. But you don't trade.
Hey,
Don't worry. Come on.
You hear me?
Listen,
folks. You hear me?
Hey, don't throw him. Move up.
Standing ovation from the crowd, an awful lot of confusion in the Mcguigan corner, as you heard, and some very clear instructions in the Cruz corner. The fascinating thing about the scorecards we saw at the end of round 14 is that Steve Cruz, in order to become champion, had to win this round by 2 points on 2 of the judges' scorecards or score a knockout.
Now Cruz went to work in the 15th round.
Right hand hurt Mcguigan. The champion holding on. And Steve Cruz backed off at that point. He had the champion hurt. You see the corner again, the Cruz corner, begging him to come on. But he took his time. He maintained his poise. Right hand again, moving Mcguigan back.
Left hand. And now Mcguigan in serious trouble. Cruz trying to find room in the middle of the ring. Another solid right hand and Mcguigan went down.
3, 4,
As much out of fatigue as the effect of the punch.
7, 8. You okay, Barry?
Referee Richard Steele, are you okay, Barry? Mcguigan said yes and went back in. Steve Cruz now at a fever pitch of excitement. Left hand solidly to the face of Mcguigan.
Those left jabs almost lifted Mcguigan's head off. There again. And Cruz backed off, gathered himself, and then came on again.
Despite the fact that the champion at this point was almost unable to defend himself. Again, Mcguigan went down. The second knockdown in round 15.
And again, as much out of exhaustion as the effect of the Cruz punches. You saw Richard Steele hold up the count for 1 beat to put Steve Cruz back in the neutral corner.
Now, in the final 10 seconds of the fight, Mcguigan valiantly was able to stand up. But that was all he could do, as Steve Cruz, who had needed, as Alex Wallow pointed out, to win the round by 2 points on 2 judges' cards, had come through with 2 knockdowns of champion Barry Mcguigan in the 15th and final round. The fight had taken place in 100-degree plus heat, outdoors at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas in early evening sunlight. Barry Mcguigan, The champion from Ireland lost the 15th round, 10-8, 10-7, and 10-7. The net effect, a unanimous decision for the previously little-known challenger, Steve Cruz of Fort Worth, Texas, now the WBA World Featherweight Champion. Well, there it was, and it could not have been more unexpected. Steve Cruz was the number 9 ranked challenger by the WBA. Got the fight only because the originally scheduled opponent, Fernando Sosa, was found to have detached retinas in both eyes. He got a hero's welcome when he went home to Fort Worth, rode in a parade. Earlier today, Alex Wallow talked to him about his new title.
Steve, the odds against you were tremendous going into the fight. Did you believe deep down that you could really win?
Yes, I did. I knew beforehand, before I took the fight, that the odds would be against me, and, I just put it in my mind that I wasn't going to let that bother me.
The thing that impressed me during the fight was that you never lost your poise. You seemed very calm. You rarely looked tired. How exhausted were you as the fight wore on?
Well, I was pretty tired because, the heat and all, it took a lot out of me, but thanks to my conditioning and thanks to my trainer, Joe Barrientos, I held my own pretty good.
Did you think you needed such a big final round to win?
Well, no. Going into the 15th round, my corner told me, that I had the fight won and all. But I'm always used to finishing the last round of a fight, real strong. And I went out there and I finished a bit stronger than what I expected.
The WBA has ruled that you must face the number 1 challenger, Antonio Esparagosa, in the fall. If you're successful in that fight, will you give Barry Mcguigan a rematch?
I believe so. I believe it was in our contract when we signed for the fight that if he were to lose the title, that I would give him a rematch. So I think it's going to be after my first defense, right? I'll give him a rematch.
Again, congratulations and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Steve Cruz is a Cinderella story, but Mcguigan himself was one of the most attractive figures in boxing, a man with roots in both Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic, a great irony, a boxer who served as a symbol of peace. Now he no longer holds that title, and when we come back, we'll see Alex Wallow's discussion with him of his present circumstances and a look back at Mike Tyson's destruction has passed now since the loss of his featherweight title. Barry Mcguigan, along with his infant son and his wife, has returned to his home in Clones near the border of Northern Ireland and Ireland. Alex Wallow went there yesterday to gather his reflections on the fight.
Barry, in your mind, why did you lose your championship?
Well, without sounding as if I'm making excuses, and with all due respect to Steve Cruz, who in my books is a very nice person and a very good fighter, I feel that the main reason why I lost the title was because of the heat in Las Vegas.
When you went back to your corner at the end of the 9th round and asked your cornerman to say a prayer for you, what was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, I realized much earlier in the fight that the tank was empty, if you like, and that I was running out of reserves very quickly, and I just wanted him to ask God that I survive without getting hurt, because I knew at that stage that it was going to be severe problems.
Did you know at that moment you were going to lose your title?
I knew that.
During the fight, it appeared that your corner could have done more to revitalize you. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I feel that there was a few mistakes made, and my corner work could have been better.
Since the fight, what has been your attitude about resuming your career?
Well, I'm taking a long rest. It's the first time I've rested in approximately 6 years, and I've put a lot of work into the last year. In 12 months, I've had 4 title fights, and I've fought 54 rounds of boxing, so I feel I'm due a rest, and I'm not going to make a decision in haste. I'm going to take a long time to think about it, and then make the right decision.
Has there been a time since the fight when you thought you would retire?
Oh, there's been times with the depression, and I probably still am a little bit depressed about losing the title. I mean, you realise just what you've lost when you come home, and as everybody knows, you lose a lot of friends too. But at the end of the day, I'm a fighter, and I want to fight, and I want to continue, and I'll make the right decision.
What has been the attitude of your wife and family?
Well, My family, my mother, for example, has never wanted me to take up professional boxing, so I would never have done it if I'd listened to Mom. But my wife also wants me to retire now, and she hasn't put any pressure on me, and at the end of the day, I'll make the right decision. I want to fight, and I feel that I will continue, and my wife will stand behind me.
If you fight Steve Cruz again, will you do anything differently?
Yeah. I'm not fighting Las Vegas in the summertime.
All right, so that wraps the Mcguigan-Cruz story, perhaps with more to come.
Move to either side to get away from Mike Tyson. You just can't stand in front of him like that. Now go over into a neutral corner. You see Mike flicking the jab, backing him in there, and then the uppercut. That first uppercut hurt him, and that second one just put him away.
After that, referee Joe Cortez began a count and then stopped it and declared the bout over. The official time, 30 seconds of the first round. Mike Tyson's 25th victory and his 23rd knockout, the 15th in the first round. And then a little bit later, Alex